everyone, and thanks so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Bandy, and today I'm flying solo without my co-host, Matt Harris, because, frankly, we're discussing a subject he's blasphemed one too many times on the airwaves. The man just isn't a fan of the Muppets, which I find absolutely inconceivable. Many of you may know already, and some of you don't, but I'm a huge Disney nerd. Way back to my childhood, I've been all about some Disney since I was tall enough to ride Space Mountain. So you can probably imagine my elation back in 2004 when Disney made it official and acquired the rights to my favorite, don't call them puppets, the Muppets, which is historically ironic considering back in 1984, Jim Henson was a big player at the time. He was considering purchasing the struggling Walt Disney Company, which was in danger of a hostile takeover by corporate raider Saul Steinberg. Now, the idea never went further than a few inquiries, but thankfully, Michael Eisner took over the Walt Disney Company and revived the relationship between Disney and Jim Henson. But I digress. That is information for another podcast at another time. Here today to talk about Disney's latest offering, an attempt to bring the Muppets back to the mainstream with their brand new show, Muppets Now, streaming on Disney+, which debuted on July 31st, 2020. Now, as I mentioned, the Muppets have withstood the test of time with many successes, many successes, but sadly a few failures along the way as well. Now, their success resume is quite impressive. They're one of the longest-running franchises in Hollywood history, with 27 television specials, 11 television series, 8 feature films, and 5 made-for-TV movies. There's a lot of franchises out there that would kill for that kind of resume. Now, the Muppets were such a huge part of my childhood, as they probably were for you as well. I had all the toys, I had the clothes, I had the records, I even had the Muppet glasses that you got at McDonald's with your Happy Meal that you see at the flea market now marked up for $20 a piece. I was obsessed, which might answer the question why a grown man's doing a podcast reviewing a so-called kids TV show, which I would argue the Muppets aren't just for kids, they're for the entire family, kids of all ages. You can fight me on that in the comments if you disagree. Now, from watching the Muppet Show on TV in the 80s to catching up the classics on the silver screen like The Great Muppet Caper and my own personal favorite, The Muppets Take Manhattan. I must have seen that movie like 50 times. I love the Muppets, you get it. However, the recent years haven't been as kind to my favorite franchise, with the lackluster offerings of the Muppet movie in 2011. Why they chose Jason Segel and Amy Adams, I'll never know. I get it. Some of you love that movie. You can fight me in the comments. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Don't get me started on Walter, the character they created for that movie. He is awful. And don't forget the failure of the TV version on ABC back in 2014, filmed in the style of The Office for some reason. My fandom, I have to admit, dwindled over the years, and that leaves me wondering, have I become too old and grumpy like Statler and Waldorf to enjoy the timeless entertainment of the Muppets? Or have the Muppets let me down with their recent offerings, losing sight of what makes the Muppets a classic? Well, I fired up my Disney Plus to look for some answers and to check out Disney's latest attempt to right the ship with their brand new show, Muppets Now, Episode 1, Due Date. A couple of things struck me at first that I absolutely loved. They could have named this show The Muppets Take YouTube because the format is more of a web-based variety show, which I think is a brilliant way to reach today's young audience. It's like each of the Muppets have their own unrelated YouTube channel, and they're all being brought together in a pandemic-style production put together by Kermit and Scooter. The other part of the show that stood out to me immediately was a decision made by the creators to go unscripted. Now, while this worked amazingly for the Muppets themselves, which was a total credit to the puppeteers and voice actors, it fell seriously flat with the celebrity guest stars who have to work their own improv off what the Muppet characters are giving them. There's some seriously cringy moments, and I'll have more on that later. My overall verdict before we get into specifics and possible spoilers is Muppets Now delivers a fresh new perspective on the classic antics and chaotic humor that first drew my attention as a kid. And it gives me hope that this could be Disney recapturing a bit of that Muppet magic. I'll be tuning in the next several episodes with a close critical eye, but overall, this is the best Muppets vehicle I've seen since 1992 and the classic Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, that's not to say there aren't some flaws that will hopefully be addressed and worked out in the upcoming episodes, but as far as my dwindling Muppet fandom, the spark's been reignited. From here on in, I'm going to get into some analysis and dissect the various sketches, so consider this your spoiler alert cliche. Stop the podcast or video and go watch the first episode due date on Disney Plus, and then come right back. I'll wait. We open the episode diving right in with an anxiety-inducing deadline that Kermit and Scooter are trying desperately to navigate just to get the show uploaded and ready to roll. Despite the various other Muppets, particularly Fozzie Bear, wanting some rewrites and increased deadlines. It's the classic Muppet chaos formula of throwing together a show last minute. It's always been a key plot device and part of the charm of the show and all the past incarnations. The first segment Scooter is putting together is about personal style and is a well-timed, hilarious commentary on our obsession with beauty, status, and becoming Instagram famous. It's called Piggy's Lifestyle, or Lifestyle as the title card is supposed to read, and it's of course hosted by the one and only Miss Piggy herself. Now, thanks to some well-done slapstick comedy from the beautician Margaret and some quick-witted banter, I had some laugh-out-loud moments despite the odd cameos of Taye Diggs and Linda Cardellini. I mean, the Muppet Show used to have legendary celebrities like Elton John, Liza Minnelli, Steve Martin, and even the man in black himself, Johnny Cash, a legend. Is the franchise so tainted now that A-listers won't come near the show? Despite all of that, Piggy's Lifestyle works, and I hope to see more future recurring segments of this. Now we move on to a strange Muppet Masters segment with Kermit the Frog and the previously mentioned totally disdained character, Walter. The segment is on hidden hobbies and starts out attempting to teach us all about photography. Before we learn about that, though, we learn about Kermit's hidden, ridiculous hobby of photobombing. Now, it makes no sense to me that the leader of the Muppets, the straight man, and the rule follower, Kermit the Frog, would have a photobombing hobby. Just doesn't fit his character. That's definitely more of a Gonzo or a Rizzo trait. And yes, I hope we can discuss this in the comments. Walter. I've never found his character very entertaining. And he just creates an annoying dynamic that provides moments of irritation that makes his character unwatchable to me. But aside from that, Kermit sipping the tea meme reference and the dry wit of Sam the Eagle, Muppet Masters seem to fall a bit flat for me. I'm calling it a swing and a miss. The next segment, Okie Dokie Cookin' with the Swedish Chef. That was a terrible impersonation. My all-time favorite character, though, aside from Statler and Waldorf, works wonders spoofing the celebrity cooking segments we've all suffered through on morning TV talk shows for years. With the chef's simplistic yet hilarious physical comedy, this segment was the highlight of the episode for me. But then again, I'm always partial to the chef's gibberish and nonsense. The final sketch of this episode is Mupp Close and Personal Interviews with Kermit the Frog and special guest, the omnipresent RuPaul. Seriously, is it just me or is RuPaul everywhere these days? Anyway, the segment attempts to tackle the topics ranging from multitasking to the use of the word diva with the help of the hilariously reimagined Howard the Pig, who made his speaking role debut in the penultimate episode of the 2014 ABC series, The Muppets. I applaud the show's commitment to diversity and really enjoyed Howard, who brings the only redeeming comedy to this sketch. Mupp Close and Personal has some potential, but unfortunately RuPaul doesn't bring the comedy with his improvisation. Just a lot of awkward laughing and the message of peace and love, which is better suited for Sesame Street if you ask me. Overall, the first Disney Plus offering of the Muppets Now due date has some hilarious moments coupled with several cringy look-away moments that made me and my nieces laugh from embarrassment. I haven't come up with a rating system yet because the thumbs are already taken and letter grades are overused, but suffice it to say, Muppets Now does its legacy credit, and I look forward to the future episodes to see if I can declare officially the Muppets are back. My name is Bandy, and thanks for joining me.